And good morning, everyone. KRK.com and Facebook. I'm Mitch McCoy. I'm joined in by Laura Monteverdi. Laura, you have somebody special. Before we get to this big one-on-one interview you had with Sarah Huckabee Sanders last night, there's somebody we have to meet.
Oh, yeah. So this is Juno. Let's see if she'll turn toward the camera. Can you say hello? She's a little camera shy. Oh, yeah. Juno is my rescue pup. And so whenever I'm home, this is where she is, in my lap. She likes to be very close to her mom.
That's awesome. That is so awesome.
Yeah. All right. Can you go sit down? Are you going to get off mom's lap? She's like, what is going on? Yeah, and now I have what I call Juno sprinkles all over, but it's all good. You sit right there.
That's awesome. So, Laura, you had a big interview last night. We're looking at pieces of it right now. Your interview with Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Tell me about this interview. Tell us about this conversation. And before we get right into it, I want to let people know you can join the conversation with Laura and myself by using the hashtag #HeyMitch, you see it right there on the screen there. We'll try and bring in some of your questions. So if you have a question for Laura about the interview that she did last night, feel free to send us it right here on Facebook Live. But Laura, this was a big interview. This was her first interview since coming home.
Yeah, she was at the White House for a little over 2 years, but in her role as press secretary for just under 2 years. And, I really enjoyed talking to her and getting to know a side of her that most people don't. I mean, when you think of her job, that is a heavy job, Mitch, to be in a room full of reporters every single day. And you could see probably some of the images just of all the reporters, their arms stretched out with microphones, asking questions, like, going back and forth. And I really wanted to get to know the person behind that. And at heart, she's an Arkansan. She's from here in Arkansas. Her dad, as many know, was governor of Arkansas. So that was the purpose of this interview, was to get to know the person, get to know Sarah as a person.
What were some, and again, for folks just joining us here on Facebook, feel free, join our conversation, hashtag #HeyMitch, what was one of your biggest takeaways from your interview with her? I mean, you guys talked about a variety of topics.
Yeah. The one thing that stands out to me, Mitch, is I asked her, what was your most difficult day on the job? Because that is not an easy job, as I mentioned earlier. And so I was expecting an answer, just something maybe that had to do with President Trump, because it was a really tumultuous time in politics. So I expected it had something to do with that. But instead, it was the day after the Las Vegas shooting when she addressed America. And I remember that moment because I remember she got choked up on air. And I've never seen her in that way. And I don't think many people who watch her every day during those press briefings have ever seen her in that light. So to shed that emotion on a day that was such a dark day for all of us here in America, I was kind of taken away that was her most difficult day on the job. But watching back, I mean, you can see the emotion, and she gets choked up. So I can't even imagine what that's like to be the first person that America hears from on that day.
And she was talking about the Las Vegas shooting.
Yes.
She was one of the first persons to come out after that shooting happened.
Yes.
And address the American public on behalf of the administration.
Yes, and reading the names of the victims, I mean, that was a day that touched us all. And so it was, that was one of the most interesting parts of the interview personally for me.
What is life like for her now that she's back home?
Well, she is cheering for the Hogs every Saturday, as I'm sure she will be, along with so many of us tomorrow. Yeah. At the end of the day, she's just a regular Arkansan. She's a mom of 3, and so she's really excited to be back home. And if you watch the full interview on KRK.com, that is what she talks about the most, is how happy she is to be back home, for her kids to be raised here. Her mom and dad are here. and she's enjoying life just being in Arkansas, and it's so crazy to think about, just going to the grocery store, going to a restaurant, which, if you recall, Mitch, she was actually kicked out of a restaurant once in Virginia for her support of President Trump. And I remember you asked me, has that ever happened here in Arkansas? And I asked her, and she said people just could not be nicer and kind to her here in Arkansas. So she's not experienced that. But then again, Arkansas is a pretty nice place, and we have some really good people here, some good Southern charm.
Some Southern charm. And I want to remind folks, you can join in our conversation right now with Laura and myself. Just use the hashtag #HeyMitch, Hey Laura in the comment section. And Laura, we are getting a question right now. This question coming in from Walter. You see it there at the bottom of the screen. He's used the hashtag Hey Laura. Is she running for governor? This was one of the questions you asked.
Yes, and this is a question she gets asked nearly every single day. And I asked her that question, are you running? She's kind of alluded to it. She, made a website, and it caused a flurry of people asking her this question, are you running? So I asked her flat out, are you running for governor of Arkansas? And she said she is highly considering a run for governor. So we didn't get a yes or no answer, as she said she wants to focus on the election right now. As we know, election day is coming up next Tuesday. And her focus right now is on getting President Trump reelected. And she said after that, she plans to make an announcement. So just being in that room with her one-on-one, Mitch, it does seem like that answer is going to lean toward yes. She's highly considering a run, but she did not give a direct answer on that. So we can expect that very soon, I imagine.
I'm sure. And she was saying that she's going to let this election kind of play out.
Yes.
And then some kind of decision would be announced. I want to remind folks, you can join in on our conversation. Use the hashtag #HeyMitch or the hashtag #HeyLaura, and we will get your comment up here on the screen. So I'm wondering, what was her reaction to the White House press corps? And that 3-month hiatus that really the White House wasn't doing any kind of press briefings. There was a lot of flack over that.
Yeah.
Did she talk about that? Did you ask her at all about that?
I did. I mean, that was, I think, off the top of my head, I think it was 94 days of not having a press briefing. And that is so out of the norm. I mean, that is what people don't understand about a press corps is that they follow the president's every move. They can ask questions. There's a meeting every single day, and you can see in some of the images, it's just a room filled with reporters. And I can't even imagine just standing there in front of all of those people being asked questions back and forth. And she said that was a decision that, President Trump wanted to speak for himself, and she allowed that. But it caused a lot of controversy, Mitch. You can remember people talked about that, saying that we were not being told the truth, we were being lied to. So I found that to be a very interesting move. And she said, that's not the only time that I have interactions with reporters. She said they have her personal cell phone number. Her number will go off. Phone will go off at 4:30 in the morning until the very end of the day. So she's getting answers. And I'm sorry, my camera's shaking because my dog is scratching herself right here. And there's no earthquake going on. So I found that to be interesting. While she wasn't meeting in those briefings with reporters every single day, she was still, interacting with them. And I had read somewhere, and I asked her about this, Mitch. She said being a White House press secretary helped her be a better mom, and vice versa. Being a mom helped her be a better press secretary. And I said, what do you mean by that? And she said, and these are her words, she's a mom of 3 young kids. And and if there are any moms out there, those kids ask you questions over and over, the same question, and you got to give them the same answer. And usually it's no, right?
Yeah.
So she said being in that room with reporters was kind of like being a mom. And even that was taken, by some people as controversial. And some people said degrading, to treat them like they were children. But she said that helped her be a better press secretary because she was used to having those questions from her kids and having to answer the same question over and over again and give the same answer.
So I want to remind folks, if you're just joining us here, Laura Monteverdi had an exclusive one-on-one interview with former White House Press Secretary and Arkansan Sarah Huckabee Sanders. The story aired last night on KRK4 News at 10, KRK.com. Right now packed with that story, including the full interview that you can watch. And that's why we're on here now, just talking about this one-on-one interview with this Arkansan that, you know, of course, everybody is wondering now if she's going to be running for governor.
Yeah.
Laura, just out of curiosity, did she talk at all about just what that experience was like? I mean, working at the White House and meeting all of these world leaders.
Yeah.
And I know that we want people to go watch the interview and they want to go see the story, but I mean, it's just so fascinating. I think that no matter what aisle you're on that political spectrum, you know, it's always nice to see an Arkansan, you know, in positions like that on the world stage. But did she talk about that? And just a reminder, folks can join in using the hashtag Hey Mitch and Hey Laura.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point, Mitch. You know, whatever side of the aisle you're on, this is, you know, I think it's so important to get to know the people potentially that may be running for a position, especially being in Arkansan, you know, because I just think that the person you see sometimes on TV may be different than the person you get to know one-on-one. And so I think that's what my goal was here, was to get to know Sarah as an Arkansan. And she does talk a little bit about her time, but she actually just recently released a book where she talks a lot about her time in the White House. And so I have yet to read that, but after this conversation, I would like to, just to learn a little bit more. But at the end of the day, Mitch, I think, like you said, it's so incredible that she is an Arkansan, a young girl who grew up in politics. Her dad was governor of Arkansas, and she has risen and now, you know, works as a commentator on Fox News. She was in the White House for 2 years, and that's pretty cool. At the end of the day, whether you like her, you don't like her, you agree, you disagree, to see an Arkansan start out where she was and then get to where she is now, I have to say, I think that's pretty impressive, especially as a woman.
What if you had one word to describe just the overall conversation? You know, and there were so many topics discussed. I mean, talking on a personal level, talking about her family. She said that she was thankful that Little Rock schools had reopened.
Yeah.
I mean, what word would you describe? Because the conversation really spanned. I mean, from family to her being kicked out of a restaurant to working with these world leaders. If you had one word to just describe just this conversation, this interview, what do you think that word would be?
I would probably choose enlightening. You know, I had only never met her before, and so I've only known her from what I've seen on television. And you know, I saw the arguments with reporters. I saw her do away with traditional press briefings. I didn't really know who Sarah was, so it was really great to get to know her as an individual. And you know, it's just, I think that's so important, just especially going into the selection too, is get to know who you're voting for, and not just their issues. That's important too, but the individual they are. I think that's important before you head to the polls, is getting to know that person. You may not be able to do a one-on-one interview with them like we were, but you know, I think that's still so incredibly important before you go and cast your ballot.
You're absolutely right. Laura, I know that speaking of elections, we have election rehearsals today. So
Yeah, we
I
do.
know that you're preparing to come into work. So I appreciate your time this morning. I know that there is a lot of things to watch here. So for folks who have not been able to watch that interview just yet, just head to our website, krk.com, fox16.com. Or excuse me, krk.com, and that interview's right there on the website. 20-minute interview, right, Laura?
I think it was almost 30 minutes. Yeah. So I definitely encourage you to go watch it. And, you know, I just ask people to, I've seen some comments on Facebook, and, some people who I knew didn't even watch the interview yet. We're already seeing some really cruel and ugly things. And I think we have enough of that in our world today of, the ugliness. So I just encourage you to go watch it. Whatever your opinion is on her, that's fine. But just keep in mind at the end of the day, she's a human, just like you are, Mitch, just like I am. And so I think people need to remember that and just show a little respect. So at the end of the day, she's an Arkansan. And so I hope that people remember that.
Well, it's always easy to hide behind a keyboard, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And I have to show you someone who's hiding right here.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Oh my goodness gracious. Here we go. There you go. She just wanted to say goodbye. She just wanted to say goodbye to you before we leave, Mitch. Okay.
Well, I appreciate it. Will you bring her into work today for election rehearsals?
If our boss is watching right now and he says yes, I will do that.
Well, the final countdown is on to election day. I'm sure
Yes.
it would just bring some positive vibes.
Yes, I
Nice
think so
visit.
too.
Right.
Hey, go to the polls, get out and vote. We've got only a few days away until election day. Kind of crazy to think about.
I know, 4 days, 4 days.
Yeah.
Remember, folks, KRK is your local election headquarters. Laura, thank you. We'll see you
Thank
beginning
you.
at 5 o'clock.
Yes, I'll see you then.
All right, take care. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Again, Laura's exclusive interview is online right now at krk.com. Be sure to check it out. Have a good afternoon.